And so I'm going to record this part as we get rolling. Ruby would like to have us at the Fry Vineyards at noon on Saturday, April 23rd. So that means we should leave Marin Waldorf at 9:30. So I think it would be reasonable if we met there at 9 o'clock. We could meet down on the basketball court at 9 o'clock and then load all our gear up. We have two rented SUVs that we're going to be driving there. And those will be our shuttle vehicles for when we get up to the river and then back to Fry Vineyard after we get off the river, and then drive back and meet you all back at school. So then when we get up to the Fry Vineyard, we'll do an orientation, and the trip leader will lay out what the kids are going to be doing, what the big jobs are for the trip. And we'll divide up those the kids into groups, and they'll have a job of navigating or being the kitchen manager. Someone's going to be in charge of the latrine. Someone will be in charge of the boats. Firewood is another job, I think. Someone's in charge of water. So we'll figure out all the expedition parts, and then I think we'll probably take off the next Sunday morning early to get on the river. I'm not exactly sure what the whole itinerary is yet, but that's generally what we've done in past trips. And then we come back and we will clean up the gear and put everything away and be back home on the afternoon of, I believe, that Friday next week. So does anybody have any questions about packing or gear or any other kind of gear? Oh, and it looks like Ruby's here now.
All right. Hello.
This is Ruby. You are Kroka Expeditions. There you are.
Hello, everyone.
So Ruby is the coordinator for the West Coast Kroka Expeditions, and she has kindly agreed to lay out what our trip will be. I just gave them the brief first day of the trip, where we'll meet you at noon and then kind of get our orientation and big jobs, and I'll let you take it from there, Ruby.
Thank you so much, Adam.
Sure.
Hello, everyone. I apologize for being late. I had the time confused in my calendar. So here we are. Indeed. So yes, noon arrival at the Fry Farm, and the first day is really just about welcoming and orienting to place, and getting a chance to meet the wonderful instructors who will be on this trip. I will not be one of the folks who is leading this program. I will be with a group from Berkeley. That same week, we will see you all on the river, because Finn and I will drive some gear up, Adam, and we'll drop it off for you all at the put-in the day that the trip starts. So that's just a fun little logistic there. But Lindsay and Marcella will be leading this trip. Lindsay is my wonderful colleague from back east. Marcella is another dear colleague from Ecuador, who will be coming up to work with us. We're super excited to welcome her for the season. She is a longtime educator, she's a partner of one of the Dahmer brothers, who are like longtime partners of Kroka, super instrumental people in our organization. So we're very excited to welcome this really lovely team to lead this trip. And they will be greeting everyone on the farm at noon for sort of an orientation time on the farm. Everyone will come together for lunch, and then come together and, like Mr. Neal said, have that time to explore big jobs, which is really where students take leadership for every element of our expedition. And each one of them is responsible for one part of our expedition. So rather than we're going to take them on a guided river trip down the Eel River, it's much more, they're going to really learn to lead themselves on expedition and learn what it takes to be not just surviving in the wilderness, but really thriving, even in really challenging circumstances, and learning to hold themselves as a group, and hold themselves accountable. So those are just sort of the first, what can be expected on the first day, is that landing on the farm, moving into what do we need to do to prepare for our expedition, and that major piece being we need to live into our work as a community for how this is going to go. So that's night one. We cook our meals on open fire. I'm hoping that given our fire season's early start this year, I'm hoping that will still be an option for us while we're at base. It will be an option for us when we're on the river. But that's one really unique piece to Kroka, is that students will be cooking their meals, their dinners and breakfasts on open fire. Lunches are nice and simple. We usually do, a tortilla and nut butter and honey or jam, or cheese and salami and crackers and fruit. That's sort of, lunch is a little bit simpler, but dinners and breakfasts are really a big to-do and a huge part of the way that we come together in community. Okay, rambling about food because it's dinner time, but just in the vein of daily flow, just to paint an idea of what a typical day in the life looks like, students will wake up on the river. I don't know if Lindsay and Marcella will do this, but I like to do a polar plunge every morning and just have all the students jump into the water with me first thing, just to be in the river, just to live into the living body of water that we are traveling on. The eel, I'm sure that Adam has shared these stories, but the eel is just this amazing, the stretch that we paddle is this amazing sort of configuration of shallower sandbar spots and then these deep pools. So there's amazing spots to jump off rocks into really deep water, to swim in deep pools, and to just have that experience of really living in the element that we're traveling with. So that's just sort of how we start our mornings. And then we jump on the water. Getting an early start is good to beat the wind. And on we go. We paddle through the day, try to make camp, hopefully make camp early enough that it's reasonable and we're setting up camp in the daylight. Sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes we set up camp in the dark, and we're just really going with the literal flow, seeing what's happening on that river. We might be looking at very low flows. We might be looking at really long days on the water of like having to push in headwind, and even though we're making pretty short mileage, it might feel like a push. So I'm seeing more folks join the meeting. This is great. Anyway, I could ramble all evening about what this trip will look like, but I'm really wanting to hear your voices and hear your questions, and then see where that directs our conversation. And I'm happy to supplement in more pieces as you all ask questions. One thing I can also do at the end of this meeting is share. I have an itinerary, sort of a loose itinerary written up for this trip. And sometimes I'm a visual person. It's nice to have that visual in front of us. And there's a couple pictures of the Eel River on there too. Is that okay, Mr. Neal? Can we open it up for questions? Do you mind calling on
Yes.
as well?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, go ahead, Jay.
So I have a food question because my son has celiac.
Yes.
Can you, I'm sure this has come up before. How do you handle that?
Yes, thanks. Great question. The first important piece for everyone is that you'll be getting a link, if you haven't gotten it already, where you're going to fill out all of your students' med information. And allergies is #1 question on the med form. And that's the first thing that I think about in menu planning for a trip. Celiac is one that we take all allergies seriously. Celiac is one where we really make an effort to try to not contaminate our non-gluten foods with anything that has touched gluten. But for you and for any other parents where this might be a concern, if you'd like to send food with your student, that is welcome on our end. Like, let's say your student has a nut allergy and they just simply cannot have trail mixes, peanut butters, like all the things, celiac being a similar case. Like, I mean, there's so many things that we eat that do involve gluten. We can easily make a gluten-free option. But if you wanted to send us tortillas and things like that, I would be delighted to put together a very simple shopping list for you. Just saying, here's the amounts, and here are the things that I would love for you to substitute because I can't like I don't know the exact brand that would work the best of the gluten-free thing in this regard. So for all of you parents, that's something I've done a lot in the past. Once I put together a menu, I can reach out specifically to individual parents with a little shopping list and just say, please provide these items. And then that helps us out tremendously, and we're able to accommodate allergies.
Perfect. Yep. That will work well for us. Thanks so much.
You're so welcome. And actually, Adam, do you mind putting me and Jay directly in touch
Sure.
so that I can just send that list along?
We can do that. Great.
Great. For all other, like for medical questions and things of that nature, please feel free to give out my direct contact info. For
Okay.
more general questions like packing list and things like that, it's actually best if you go first. Adam, he's had a lot of experience on these trips. First of all, he might be able to just answer the question. If he can't, you can just compile a list for me so that I get a comprehensive list from everyone. But all questions are welcome. The reason we do that is because I'm in the field starting in just a few days and I'm hard to get a hold of. So it leaves parents really frustrated if they're individually trying to get a hold of me. But if we go all questions at once, it works better.
Yeah. So I can do my best to answer those questions, Ruby.
Thank
And
you.
there was a question about boots, about rubber boots.
Right.
And so in my estimation, I didn't think those were going to be necessary this year.
No, I mean, Adam's been on like the rainiest expedition Kroka's ever had, maybe, where base camp flooded and everyone was just, Rob probably should have had hip waders and like a dry suit. This year, unfortunately, we're so deep in drought. I can't imagine that we're going to be talking about deep rain at that time of year. It will be a blessing if we are. And if you need to borrow rubber boots, we have them here. Adam, I can be in touch, or actually I can't be in touch because I'll be on the river, but I can put Lindsay in touch with you that week leading up if it looks like we should be asking folks to bring rain boots.
Okay.
I think we'll be fine. However, parents, rain coat and rain pants are still critical river items. They work really well as splash jackets. If your student gets kind of chilly, the worst thing is like a windy afternoon with chilly water on you. The best piece of gear at our disposal is just a raincoat on top of everything else, rain pants on top of everything else. Also good for dewy mornings when you want to stay dry. So please still send that, even if it seems extraneous due to a dry season.
I had a couple questions. One, I was curious, like what kind of boats you guys are going to be on, and then the other was some questions. I haven't seen the packing list, but if our daughter wants to sleep in a hammock, and she's done that before on a river, and we have like a hammock with like a bug fly and like a tarp on it. I was just curious if there's trees in that area that would support that, or if she should not bother to bring that.
That's an easy one. I'll start by answering that one. Unfortunately, not great tree situation on this river for a hammock, but great question. Encourage her to do it anywhere else. And I'm sorry that won't work so well here. Last year, we just slept out, actually. We set up our tarps on the beach. There was so little precipitation and dew in the night that we had this beautiful experience of sleeping under the stars. And that was really lovely. So I'm hoping we get to do that again this year. If not, we will bring tents and tarps. As to your question about boats, I had a multi-hour meeting today about boats. And sorry, there's a giant frog over here that just started up. Very distracting. There's an ongoing question about boats. Last year, we were in these hard shelled, like plasticky, like a canoe that you'd see on a lake, basically is what we brought. Very problematic. They broke often. It was really difficult for us. So we have a few of those boats. I'm hoping we don't need to use them. We have a cataract, which we also used last year, that we will be bringing. And then I spent my whole afternoon negotiating boats with a wonderful local group of folks that rents boats out of Healdsburg. So I'm hoping to be picking up the same boats that Leah used to get, except that some of them aren't available. So it's a huge snafu. That's logistics on my end. But my desire is that we will be in exclusively inflatable craft. What exactly that looks like, I can't tell you in this moment because I'm not sure exactly who we're getting it from. But my desire after last year and the struggles we went through with boats breaking is that we're in inflatable boats that are indestructible, and that's how we're traveling.
Nice. Can I also ask, there's two girls who have a birthday that falls within this week. And in the past, last year, they did like a joint birthday. And I was just curious if you guys have, if there's anything, if we wanted to help you guys make that special for them, if you guys ever like run with Dutch ovens or,
We do.
oh, sweet.
Every time. And Mr. Neil can tell you about the horrible chocolate cake I tried to make last year. It went so poorly, but don't worry, Lindsay will know what to do. No, this year, well, I can't remember what I forgot to add. I might have forgotten to add cooking oil or something. Something horrible happened and I made like this brick. And the students were so gracious. They were like, this is delicious. I'll have another piece. Like, don't worry, Miss Pinudorova, I don't care. I'm like, you guys are just nice because this is horrible. So absolutely, we love birthdays. We have like multiple birthday songs that we will berate your children with. And I like to travel in the field with a candle. So I'll send birthday candles with the instructors. You are welcome to throw, like honestly, just like a beeswax candle is always nice. I have them that I can send along, but if you have a special family beeswax candle you want to send, you can do that. And then what I usually do for birthdays is I have everyone do an appreciation circle. So just have that, but that's sort of up to Marcella and Lindsay. But Mr. Neil, if you want to spearhead that, just like have everyone share an appreciation, or if students want to make cards beforehand, totally welcome that. And we usually do it around a meal, often in the evening.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Great question. Yeah, on semester, I've had my birthday on semester for the past 3 years. So my students have found really creative ways, like up remote canyons across the country to try to make it special. And likewise for student birthdays, it's really fun.
Hi, Ruby. Nice to meet you. This all sounds amazing. I just had a practical question that if you had like a medical emergency or something came up, what would happen? Thanks.
Great question. Great question. It totally depends on the nature of the medical emergency. We are all trained as wilderness first responders, and so there's a lot we can do in the field, which is really exciting insofar as, you know, stabilizing a patient and being able to make those decisions about what type of evacuation is necessary. I'm trying to think of the most common things that I see in the field. The most common things I see in the field are everything from stings to, you know, soft tissue injuries to more extreme like knife and axe wounds. I haven't dealt with a lot of that because I'm very religious about knife and tool safety. So prevention, of course, being the best thing we can do as far as making sure we stay really safe in that regard. But in the times that I've had to evacuate and I've needed outside assistance, we have a whole chain of command within our organization of who the instructors would call from the field, and we send an in-reach device, which is a device that basically acts kind of like a satellite phone. It connects to satellite and then can text out from the field. So what's going to happen is I will actually be on support for the week that your program is in the field, that your students are in the field. And so I would be the person that Lindsay or Marcella would call. They would text to me and say, we're having an emergency, you know, and then there's a whole chain of command that goes from there. And the beauty of the Eel River is that you're never far from a road. And so going in and actually running our own evacuation is pretty easy. Of course, if we've had a catastrophic injury, we're calling an EMS and they are going to come and they will, like, I don't think in any circumstance would we be talking about a helicopter evacuation. We would be talking about an ambulance to the riverside and us stabilizing and bringing a patient up the river corridor. And that's just in the most extreme circumstance. So we have all kinds of safety plans in place. We have maps that we send into the field to the closest medical center. So that's just sort of like our background protocol for emergency circumstance. Adding to that, you know, an extensive amount of wilderness medical training that we've all recently recertified as well.
Thank you, that's great.
Of course. Such great questions, everybody. It's such a refreshing, it's so refreshing to work with Marin Waldorf and to see you all. And yeah, just, I was actually born and raised in Marin County. So it's nice to, and I did my practicums at Marin Waldorf. So it's really nice to just be with familiar community here. And yeah, your questions are so thoughtful and lovely. Sometimes in parent meetings, we go down these rabbit holes where parents are like, why can't they bring deodorant? You know, and we talk about that for an hour. And I'm like, oh, I wish we could talk about the meat of this expedition, because those questions are valid too. But I'm just sensing that you all are, yeah, just supporting your students in taking this edgy experience where we are going to push the edge. We are going to like really take intentional risks and be talking with students about like risk versus consequence, and like what are these risky things that we might do, and how as a young person emerging into the world do you make decisions, and like, okay, how do I know if this is a safe rock for me to jump off of into this deep pool of water? Great thing for, you know, a 7th, 8th grader to be learning to navigate, almost as a metaphor for how do I look at the river of life and decide when I should jump, and decide when I can swim myself out of this rapid, and just like sort of helping plant those seeds that feels like our work on a really deep level. And I can just feel your support in that. So that's exciting. And I think ultimately is so wonderful for your students, because then they can come home and process in that space where they're like, I've had this really challenging experience, and you go, yeah, I know it was supposed to be, and tell me all about it. So
Yes, Fernanda. Go ahead. Oh.
I was just wondering about Marcella and Lindsay experience. How long have they been doing this?
great question. Marcella is one of our longest time Kroka instructors ever. Like, it is a tremendous privilege that she decided she was going to come out and work with us this spring. I'm honestly really surprised and so excited. She and her partner, Michael, run another outdoor school down in Ecuador. So they are, I would say, like probably some of the best guides in the world. Like, honestly, I'm flattered and honored that they're like, we're going to come work with you this spring. I'm like, what? So we have a lot to learn from them. Lindsay signed on as seasonal staff with us last spring, and she just signed a year-round contract. So she's now a full-time year-round member of Kroka. She's wonderful. She was doing guiding work before Kroka as well. She's just so solid. And by the time she leads your trip, it will be Marcella's first time down that stretch of river, but Lindsay will have done it with me already a couple of times. And of course, Adam has done it like, what, 5 times at this point?
This will be my 4th. So
4th time. So yeah, like, and it's a really mellow section of river. So, and as far as I think, like their experience holding groups, that is what they both, I mean, like, I can definitely speak from Lindsay's side because I've worked with her more closely. She was a wilderness therapy guide for a while. She just really knows how to hold a group of young people through challenge and facilitate like deep, meaningful space. And then Marcella, I've only ever heard amazing things about. I don't know if her bio is on the Kroka website, is the only thing. I wish you all could learn a little bit more about her, but if I can make that happen, I will. I'm going to meet with her later this week. So if I can like pull something from her that I could send to you all just to introduce her, that would be great.
great.
Thank you.
Of course. Nice to see you.
You. Hey, why can't they bring deodorant to the
Still a valid question.
I think Carlos had his hand up.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Carlos.
Hi.
Hi.
I spend a lot of time doing this kind of things, and I'm totally encouraging my daughter to go. I told her I can get you whatever equipment you need, but she has no interest to participate. She has no interest to go, and is not excited whatsoever about discomfort. So I don't want to push her into going, but I do want to understand the nature of this trip a little bit deeper as of what will be a good benefit for someone that is interested in art so much more than in outdoors.
That is such a beautiful question. That's something I encounter a lot, especially in this age group, to be honest with you. Our students who are really reticent to go. Like, I had an entire class of 8th graders last year where their teacher said, this is what we're doing for our 8th grade trip. And they said, what? No way. And I met with them before their trip and I wasn't trying to sell the trip to them. I just said, this is here. I'll just tell you a little bit about what this will be like. And they still weren't excited. And then they came up to the farm and they still weren't excited. And then we got on trail, and like 2 days in, something magical happened. And I can't speak specifically to exactly what types of discomfort your daughter will face, because different things make different people uncomfortable. So maybe for some people, the edge is sleeping outside. For some people, the edge is, not like learning to wash their hands by doing a sand scrub in the river, and that feels weird on their skin. For other people, the edge is being in a group socially for that long. For other people, the edge is, not really knowing how to regulate their own body temperature and feeling like, I don't know how to layer properly. I'm always too hot. I'm always too cold. I'm really bothered by bugs. I'm really bothered by the sun. Like, everyone's edge is different. So I just can't speak to exactly what will be the trigger or could be the perceived discomfort for your student. But I think your point is really beautiful. And one piece that I try to do is to really slow a trip down, especially for younger students, and just say, all right, we're going to play on the sandbar for a while, or let's just pause and float and read our book together as a group. Let's pull out the art supplies and do some journaling. Like, those are the ways to accommodate someone and make someone who might be like, I don't want to do the radical cliff jumping paddle boarding thing like the entire time. Like, let's just create that space as community for I think the conception going in can be, oh my God, we're just going to paddle all day. And last year, we did a layover day, and we spent an entire day in one spot, and we cooked a fish. We had a giant cooking party. That was the day that I had failed to make a good cake, but I had 6 students helping me fail to make a good cake. And the other student was working on the fish with Mr. Neal. Somebody else was stacking rocks. There was a child who was like, God, I wish I had just been alone all week. I'm going to go sit and read my book, and just do some drawing. And so I think what I'm saying is that there's space for more learning styles and for more experience of nature that isn't just through the realm of adventure sports, which I think can be a very comforting thing. If you're like, no, I want to connect to nature through poetry. I want to connect to nature through my art, or there's just different ways to exist in community and nature, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Yeah. And
can I share, Carlos, you could have her talk to our daughter, Nyla, because Nyla also, she's much more on the art side, does not like discomfort at all. And has gone on 2 multi-day river trips on the San Juan and the Green, and just loves those. So she might be a good resource for your daughter to chat with.
Thank you for that. That's lovely. And I think one more piece I will add is that I think the beauty and the magic of the place is I don't know, what would you say, Mr. Neal? It's not to be it's hard to put it into words. It's hard to say to you all as we, sit in our living rooms or wherever we are, here, let me have you taste or smell or feel the river. This is what is going into the souls of these young people who are coming with us. It's impossible to tell you enough good things. And yes, there are the moments of discomfort and challenge and struggle. But that almost amplifies the beauty of place, even for someone who's I really don't like nature. I really don't want to do this. What would you say, Mr. Neal? Are there more pieces there?
Yeah, I really appreciate that too, Carlos. And I really respect Maddie's opinion on everything. I think she's very thoughtful. And I've noticed how much she just really can sink into nature when you get her out there. She's one that might be a little reluctant, but when we go on our hikes, on our afternoon thing, she seems really comfortable, and she likes to find a comfortable spot though. And, and I can see my favorite way of traveling in wilderness is floating in a boat with a canoe. I mean, all your gear is on the bottom of the boat. You just sitting up, paddling, the river's going the direction you want to go. It's really a comfortable way to travel. And my goal as well is to make sure that people bring the right gear so that they are comfortable. And that's why today I spent a good half hour answering questions about what to bring, what's a good thing to make yourself comfortable. And the list that Ruby provided is excellent. And I would say I saw one of the best shooting star shows I've ever seen, laying on my back on a sandbar the first night, that first campsite. It's just an amazing place to see the stars, to see everything. And it won't take long before anybody just gets swept up in what we're doing and forget about anything, any preconceived notions I think they thought they had or what they wanted to have or whatever. It's just, you're really in the moment when you go out there. So I think we're all in for a really great adventure.
Hi, it's me again. I was just asking, hearing you speak about it is just so inspiring, and I'm just wondering if the kids will get a chance to hear from you, Ruby, or anyone else from Kroka before they go. Thanks.
I was working really hard with Megan Neal on setting up a day for me to come to Marin Waldorf. And my schedule is such this year that it didn't make sense for me to come down. In years past, Leah and myself have come, whoever was leading, to speak with the students directly and to lay out maps and to talk about the journey. And this year I think we're asking for, in some ways, asking for more trust on the students' end of just like, you're gonna show up, you're gonna meet us, you're gonna go down the river, it's gonna be great. And I think, honestly, as much as I love to start to develop that relationship with students before a program, most of the programs I lead, I've never met my students before. And I meet them, and then we sink in together, and then I start to tell stories. And there's almost this like magical hype that happens before a trip. And I also feel like Adam as a resource is just unparalleled. Like the fact that you've done this so many times, and you can also speak to the magic of the shooting stars and the magic of the experience, I think is really comforting for students, being like, oh, Mr. Neal has gone, it's gonna be okay, it's gonna be great, and they probably have peers and friends from previous years who have done Kroka trips, and there's sort of that foundation. That all said, I wish I could come and meet your students, and I'm sorry that isn't going to work out this year.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
I have a sort of question about the practice that you guys have for how you run the river in terms of like organizing the group, because I can't imagine taking like 20 kids down a river. So I was just curious, like how you teach them about like having like a lead boat and a sweep boat and like staying in line of sight, or how you guys sort of navigate that and what you see actually happens on the river in like that risk consequence framework.
Great question. You are speaking like a true river runner, so that's exciting. Yeah, I mean, it varies a lot, and we've pushed the envelope for sure in a variety of directions. With a really large group, it's super nice to split into two groups, and I might encourage Lindsay and Marcella to do that, to have Lindsay with a group, Marcella with a group, maybe Lindsay and I'm not sure, actually, Mr. Neal, Finn's gonna come with you all, but maybe like Lindsay and Finn, or Lindsay and the other Adam and Finn have a group, you and Marcella. It will be Marcella's first run of this river, but again, she's like got more experience than all of us combined. So she can read and run, and we're not talking big water here. But I think the biggest piece that you're talking about is like setting a culture, a river culture with the students, and really ingraining, just through experience and conversation, like deep respect for the water. Like the water is a powerful force. Like we broached and broke a boat on a trip last year in waist deep water. Like that is how powerful the river is. And we're not talking a rapid, we're talking like a stick in the middle of the river, broken boat, waist deep water, amazing power. And so, it's incredible to sort of develop that relationship with students with the river. That's why we do what we do, is to really bring young people both into like the river life framework of like lead boat, sweet boat. Mr. Neal does a great job. He's like guided the cataract for the last few years, and it's like, all right, everybody forward paddle and on three, let's coordinate. Like just so much play around like, yeah, let's learn how to do this really well, but let's not make it some like, you know, militant big deal. It's just like, let's be so graceful in how we teach this. But I think I'm taking your question also as like on that more spirit level, like how do we engage with place in the most meaningful way, you know, in the context of judgment and safety on a river, and teaching students about like reading water and being like, well, if you go that way, you're gonna wind up in that tree. If you go this way, but not necessarily saying that, like letting students wind up in the tree and being like, well, you wound up in the tree and we pulled you out. And now you know in your bones what it feels like to flow with the river and not fight it and lean into the turns, and just really trying to inspire that confidence in the students themselves and their paddling ability. That's what I want them to walk away with. And if nothing else, just walk away one step closer than they were before. For the student who's grown up on the river, you know, deeper relationship with California rivers, you know, it's not the Green River. We're here, this is the eel, this is a much lower flow, this is the water we're working with. And so, I don't know, does that answer your question adequately?
Yeah, it's really like, how do you not lose a kid?
Yeah, so
I
I
think
want to
it's
chime in,
great.
Jason. My background is in, I was a raft guide for many years. I was also taught kids canoeing, and I taught whitewater kayaking as well. And I have a background in swiftwater rescue too. So I'm very safety minded and on it around a river. The kids never get in the river in a boat without a life jacket on. If we can't see the bottom of the river, they're wearing a life jacket. It's just the way we keep track of kids is by having them float. So that's just basic river safety stuff. And then I've tried to develop a culture with all my classes that even when we're walking on trails, that we keep together, we stick together, we keep an eye out for each other. So you are able to see the person in front of you on a trail or the person behind you, and often stopping to reconnect and wait for the slower people so that they can catch up. And I want the slower people to understand that the faster people want to go fast. And it's a really good community building exercise to keep everybody in a group. And it's something we'll work on all week. And then sometimes, as Ruby said, we'll make a judgment call to split into two groups and maybe let the fast ones go ahead and set camp, and the slower ones can take their time and go a little bit slower. But safety is the most important guiding factor. And, you know, it is a river. And like Ruby said, it doesn't take much water to, you know, it's powerful. It's all moving in one direction. You can't stop it. So you got to respect it. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
That answers your question.
Yeah, I kind of like wish I was going now. And just last question, do the kids get to swim much or like float the river? And if so, is it warm or should they bring wetsuits or?
No wetsuits.
That's awesome.
Let's do our little polar plunges for sure. And I'm anticipating by the time you all have joined us, we're going to be talking warm weather. We're going to be talking, we wish we were in the water. I'm going to be doing everything I can to keep your students protected from the sun. I'd say that is actually when we were talking about injuries earlier, that's the biggest one that I noticed is sunburn, and it's a big deal. And so I really try to encourage students, you know, to learn how to layer appropriately to stay protected from the sun. So broad brimmed hats, a lightweight long sleeve shirt, super important. A lightweight hooded long sleeve shirt, even better, underneath the hat. I mean, we go full river style. Like when I'm doing extended river trips with students, like, I mean, leading a 28-day trip, leading a 55-day trip, we live in our long underwear. We wear one set of long underwear on the river, thin wool, you know, and then you get in the water in your wool, and then you get out and you're wet and you dry in the sun. Like this is what we do when we're in Mexico, and it's just like so hot. we're not talking those types of temperatures here most likely, but who knows? We could be talking really high temperatures, really lots of sun, and we're going to want to be swimming all the time. And having students really learn how to take care of their bodies in and out of the water is key, because you have sun, you have chapping and chafing from like wet, dry, wet, dry, wet, dry. You have the reality, especially for female body folks, of like, you really want to be able to dry off and like not fester, and like just teaching students in a really respectful way how to take care of their own bodies and be like, yeah, I know when I've been sitting here wet for too long and I need to like put on a dry pair of pants and change into so what we do is we have our river clothes, we have our camp clothes, and we're just very specific about what we ask you all to bring, and then we really live by that. It's not like a free-for-all once we're on the river. It's like, no, we're going to be telling students, you may put your shirt on right now, because no, we're not here to get tan, we're here to stay safe. So, you know, without being demeaning, really acknowledging that there are good outfits for the river, and we've asked them to bring what they need.
Adam.
Yeah, hi. Ruby, I think it'll be early in the spring season, or I guess late in the spring season, but do you anticipate that there'll be enough water in the river? Or will there be sections that will be quite dry or shallow?
Good question. I mean, enough is a relative term. Enough for all of the life that depends upon that river? Absolutely not. We're in a massive state of drought, and it's really horrifying. Enough as far as, can we bring our bodies and our boats down this river? Probably. I was running trips into June last year. So it depends on whose perspective we're taking. Enough from a human perspective of us choosing to travel on the water? Yeah, probably. And last year, I mean, I was talking to Mr. Neal like the day before our 8th grade trip, and I was like, we're not gonna have enough water to run this river. And we did it, and it was fun. And then we ran it again a few weeks later in the season. And then I just kept pushing it. We pushed it into June, and it was really hard, but we did it. And yeah, there are sections you get out and walk, but it sparks conversation around, you know, yes, this is a little inconvenient for us as humans, but who is this really impacting? Who does this river directly impact? And let's talk about that as a class.
And are there any interesting sections where there are rapids, or is it all class one, so to speak?
Well, class one would delineate that there is a rapid. So we're talking flat, or we're talking moving water for a lot of this, where I wouldn't say it even falls into the class system of rapids here. I would say we have lots of riffles, and then we have swift turns in the river. So anytime the river takes a swift turn, all the water funnels into one space and moves quickly around a big boulder or something. And that's where you'll get like some exciting, spicy spots.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yes, Jay.
You mentioned reading a book, but I don't see a book on the list. Can they bring a book to read?
Thanks for that question. There's no book on that list because we bring a book. And
great.
We read as a class. And so I don't remember if we did that on Rhine-Waldorf trips last year. I can't remember what Christine decided, or Mia, but that could be a question for both Adams, is like, what is the reading book that we bring for this trip that we can read aloud as a group, or that Marcel and Lindsay can read aloud as a group with you all? Are there sections where you can just float and read? Can you read at night? So I think I had a lot of books for certain groups last year, and then other groups we just decided we'll just do storytelling, and we'll do other pieces in the evening and singing and whatnot. Last year, I think Mia's class, there was a whole group of them that wanted to do like a song circle for a couple nights. And do you remember that, Adam? We were at that one. Oh, it was so beautiful. It sounded like angels. So anyway, it sort of depends on the group, but maybe that can be a question to decide on a book and bring one book for the whole group, or 2 copies if we split the group in 2, you know, for the whole group to read for that week.
Great, thank you.
That's a good question.
I wish we could bring all of you. You seem excited.
It does seem exciting.
I've never been to a meeting for Waldorf school that didn't make me wish I could just sign up as a student.
So true.
That's good to hear. Anyone else? Anyone we haven't heard from with Oh, Carlos.
Yeah, how long do they stay in the boat? And is it increments of 2 hours, or do they push for 6 hours a day?
Oh my gosh, no pushing for 6 hours a day. That's with my college students. And then we really push, sometimes 10 hours a day. But with this age group, it's all about play. It's like, how much fun can we have in the river? I mean, if that means 2 hours of paddling, great. But if that means 20 minutes of paddling, a snack, a swim, a game, a side hike, a cave, a wildflower, a time to read a book, like that's what we're going to do. This is about play, that we are not trying to make mileage. Ideally, the trip is about 25 miles long. I doubt that we're going to be able to run that whole section by the time this trip rolls around, and we're probably going to take out, I want to say, more like 15 miles of actual river travel. And a lot of that, the water is like, when the water moves, it moves, and you can just sit in your boat and just float downstream. You don't really have to paddle. And then there are the sections where the headwind comes up and you're really digging in, and we might be like, all right, let's push for another half an hour and get to camp. So I can't give you a real timing. It's more like, what's the flow and what's the weather and how are the students doing? And is someone tired? And do we need to stop? Does somebody need to poop? What are we doing? Good question.
Yeah, Jay.
Sorry, I have more clothing questions.
Great.
Or hiking questions. So it says on the back about a t-shirt, but I don't see a t-shirt on the list. So is one pair of shorts and 2 t-shirts really enough? But I don't see any t-shirts on, like, I only see one shirt total on the list, which is the long sleeve shirt. Is that?
Oh, that's an interesting, great observation. I actually, that list recently underwent some changes. I was not the final person to look at it, so I apologize. I don't actually know exactly what you're looking at. The list that I go off of has 2 t-shirts on it, so please send 2 t-shirts. That's great.
Yeah.
That
I
makes-
know what you're saying, Jay, because I packed that list into my little bag and showed the kids how to bring their stuff sack full of those items. And I noticed there wasn't a t-shirt on there, and I wasn't sure if that was because I normally don't wear a t-shirt on the river, because when it gets wet, it's just a wet t-shirt then. So I usually use, like, I have a short sleeve, long underwear, kind of like wool short sleeve shirt that I wear, or I'm always wearing long sleeve too, because I don't want to get sunburned. So, but there also is stuff to bring for the camp trip. And so 2 t-shirts would be good for base camp and 1 to go home in. So we could amend that to bring 2 t-shirts would be good.
So yeah, because it said, because you said that there are river clothes and then there are camp clothes.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, so you just got the 1 shirt, the 1 pants, the 1 shorts.
Yes,
And
and
that's-
clarify, usually I have my students in their shorts on the river. So
Mhm.
like shorts and a long sleeve shirt is a great option.
Mhm.
And then when I start seeing really sunburned knees, I start having people put on their long underwear bottoms or their quick dry pants, depending on what people are like. Some people are just really uncomfortable. They're like, no, I need to wear my shorts. So it's like, great, we'll slather your knees in sunscreen. But if I start seeing like lobster knees, that's when we revert to looking at what do we have? How can we work with what we have and make it safe? And that's where those rain pants really come in handy. Not so much for like a hot, sweaty paddling trip, in a spring condition, but any wintry paddling trip, I just live in my rain pants on the river, and then I'm getting splashed, I'm getting wet, but I have my rain pants on, and it keeps me dry-ish, and then I can go from there.
Okay, so the quick dry pants really are camp clothes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's like sometimes the common quest. The kids are like, let me put my quick dry pants on for the river. It's like, no, wear your shorts for the river, get soaked in your shorts, and then go into your quick dries at night. And the reason that we ask for quick dries at night is A, they're really lightweight and versatile. B, they when you get damp or when you go to the river to collect water and you spill half of it on yourself, you dry fast, and it's good.
Great. And now I've got another clothing question, sorry, about boots, or yeah, hiking boot, I mean. Right, we've got sneakers, we've got sandals, We've got,
Great.
our son wears 0 shoes. He's got a pair of water resistant hiking boots. I was thinking that I would send him in those, but you're saying that it's too tough
Great.
on the snow?
No, sturdy, comfortable shoes for camp. And I will leave it with you all. Please don't send Vans with no laces and nice fashionable things that are impractical. You all, I'm sure, with lots of outdoor trips, know exactly what is practical and what isn't, and can help your student make that choice. Something comfortable and easy for camp. We're not going to be doing a severe amount of hiking, but if we are lugging gear, I want them to have a good pair of closed-toed shoes that they can walk a distance in carrying a load and not like immediately get a blister or immediately feel uncomfortable.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, and then sandals that stay on feet. And of course, Adam is like the perfect resource for this, for what is a good river sandal, and he will look at all those shoes and help students with that.
Yeah.
But I'm not talking flip-flops or Crocs or something like that. I'm talking like full-on Chacos or Keens or Tevas that, like, if you swim, and actually this is a safety piece, going back to safety, river safety, you always have shoes on, because if you go for a swim, you want to be kicking off rocks downstream so that you're not immediately slicing up your feet as you swim downstream, or if we choose to swim a little rapid with our life jackets on for fun. So sturdy sandals, good camp shoes. You can really skip the rubber boots unless we've had a super rainy week the week before. We wouldn't take the rubber boots on the river. We would use them on the muddy farm. And that's why we have them on the list.
And I also said, Ruby, earlier before you signed on, that in lieu of fancy river sandals, old tennis shoes are great too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally. Even
And
better.
they actually
Thank you.
can even be more comfortable, you know.
Actually, yes.
Yeah. So
I'm right there with you. I've actually started, if any of your kids are surfers, I've started wearing my surf booties, my neoprene booties on the river, because my feet just get cold and like funky, and I stub my toe really easily in my sandals. So I just wear my neoprene booties and I'm psyched. So that's an option if you have access to those. Where makes or breaks a trip. It really does. So
Yeah, that's yeah.
okay, well, thanks, Ruby. I think if there's not any more questions, I can always field any questions that you all could email me with something if you have any questions. And yeah, I don't know how we should sign off here.
Thank you. Thank you, Ruby.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
Excited. Thank
That
you.
was awesome.
Excited for the
Good
trip.
night.
Great.
Adam.
Bye, all.
Thank you.
Bye, Irina.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Okay, thanks, guys.